Hi, Jonathan York from Bay Financial Partners, looking at investment markets. Bit of a big move in the US over the last couple of days, big sell-off. That was really on the back of the sort of 10-year getting up to yields just over 1.4. Now, if you consider about 6 months ago, the 10-year bond yield was trading around sort of 0.86. That's a pretty big move. And while the Fed has come out and said, interest rates aren't going up anytime soon, it's still very accommodative on the policy, etc., there was still a little bit of nervousness in the market. And obviously that's still against a backdrop with the sort of COVID vaccines being rolled out in the US. And certainly in terms of infection cases, they do seem to be getting under control now. Hospitalizations as well seem to be falling. And gradually, I'd say the vaccines are being rolled out. So, which is obviously good news. And that, together with the accommodative stance from the Fed and the stimulus package going through into the economy, should prove to be a pretty healthy environment for equities over the next sort of 6 to 9 months. Now, that's not to say there won't be any volatility out there, but certainly at the moment, most analysts and economists are predicting that any dips in the share market should be bought. In his first speech since leaving the White House, ex-President Trump has come out and sort of said, the movement is still alive and sort of kicking. It's only just started. And then sort of hinted that potentially 2024 he might come back and beat them for the third time. And obviously quite interesting wording there because, beat them for the third time. He won in 2016, certainly. But he actually lost in 2020, hence he's now the ex-president. And, but the implications are that he still believes he won the election. Now, by that wording, he clearly still believes that he won the 2020 election, which is really a little bit of a dangerous sort of stance because it does appear to be a little bit of sort of detached from reality. So I suppose sort of watch this space to see what else comes out in the next sort of 2 to 3 months. Now, oil's still holding around that $60 a barrel. Certainly global growth appears to be sort of on the upward trend. Further good news in the UK as the vaccine program sort of rolls out, and Prime Minister Johnson has now laid out this sort of roadmap he's got for gradually releasing the country from this sort of lockdown. But it's been pointed out, and really it's sort of a global issue, the biggest problem potentially could be with the vaccines is the anti-vaxxers. Europe as well making headway with the sort of vaccine rollout, and that sort of all bodes pretty well for their as they roll into their sort of summer months. Because certainly Southern Europe, really will rely on the tourism industry this year to sort of kickstart their economy. Australia also making good headway with the sort of COVID response, and potentially looking for those vaccines to start being rolled out very soon. In New Zealand, COVID case in the community now has seen Auckland back into level 3 lockdown, the rest of the country back to a level 2. And it now transpires this is really on the back of sort of COVID cases that really weren't doing what they were supposed to in self-isolation, and also then meeting up with other people and sort of spreading the virus. And certainly now the government's sort of scrambling to try and get on sort of top of things, and it's really just going to be interesting to see how it sort of plays through in the next sort of week or so. Because certainly from today onwards, the sort of health ministry has now sort of come out and said, any cases that were sort of put into the community should start to show up from today onwards. And this just places further pressure, certainly on the Auckland businesses. Say in level 3 lockdown, some of those businesses are struggling and just sort of hanging on as it is without a further week or 2 weeks of lockdown. So hopefully it will be short-lived. We can sort of get back to a sort of reduced level. And that certainly should help the economy, because certainly the Trans-Tasman bubble at present has been put on the back burner. Australia has now reintroduced the 2-week quarantine for any people coming in from New Zealand, whereas before that was just sort of straight through and no quarantine required. Now, interesting as well, one of the major Australian banks has come out with their sort of forecast now, and they don't predict any changes in the OCR until 2024. So if that is the case, this low interest rate environment, it's here to stay, and it is pretty tough out there for investors. So if you're looking for some income options, so go to the website www.bayfinancialpartners.co.nz for lots of interesting articles, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.